Today's video is sponsored by a good friend of the channel, Bootleg Greedo. Gisa Glorious Resurrector versus Krrik, son of Yawgmoth, Kess Dissident Mage, and Kalamax the Stormsire. Decided to keep this hand because we do have a means of ramp in the early game. A Wayfarer's Bauble for us on turn 1, and we will pass the turn. Just a tap land from Kess, and then it's a Shadowborn Apostles deck from the Krrik player. So not sure if they've taken that from our very own Brandon Drennan, known as Greenhammer online, but we've played the Shadowborn Apostle deck many a time on this channel. Well, it does look like it's a very similar deck. I did say nothing too strong in the lobby, and our opponent's going off with Chrome Mox and Sol Ring. The Shadowborn Apostle coming in towards us. Swamp for us, and we will just crack the Wayfarer's Bauble straight away here. Sol Ring for Valdreig. And now a Paradox Haze from the Grixis player. They got down Fire Diamond on their turn 2. I don't know if I covered that. And now Elixir of Immortality from Brandon. And swinging one each at each of our opponents, so we've each taken a ping from the Apostles. And that has us at 3 mana here, so let's go for the Chromatic Lantern, and we can go Expedition Map as well. Hell of a turn from the Kess player. The Mox Tantalite coming back in, didn't even realise it was suspended, and then kicking a Skyclave Relic. And then with the 1 mana from the Skyclave Relic, got a Brainstorm off. Brandon going straight in for attacks, 1 into us, 1 into Kess. And then for us it's going to have to be going for an Urborg, I think, because we are missing a land this turn, and Cabal Coffers isn't quite good enough yet. We are up against a couple of black players that might play Urborg, but yeah, I just don't want to play Cabal Coffers and then not draw into any other lands for the rest of the game, so we'll go for the Urborg, play that, and then we can get down the Darksteel Plate. Forgot to mention as well that Valdreig played the Stormkiln Artist last turn as well, and that is now swinging in towards Brandon. I'm a bit scattered at the moment because I've been trying my damnedest to get a game with Gisa all day and it just hasn't worked out. But Valdreig is a patron of the channel, brought Kalamax, and then MTG Salt, Brandon Drennan on the channel, has brought his Krrik, son of Yawgmoth deck, which you've seen plenty of times. Anyway, speaking of tutors, Final Parting coming from Kess, and the Kess Natural Connection as well. Search for a basic, put it in tapped. Kess Dissident Mage is coming into play now for the Grixis player. And with the Final Parting, there is a Gitaxian Probe in the bin. They are casting Brainstorm from their graveyard with the Kess. Now a Lotus Petal from the Krrik player, and both of these swinging in towards Kalamax. And we get ourselves into a swamp, so that means that we can go for our commander and equip the Darksteel Plate, which is really good. So down comes Gisa Glorious Resurrector, and we will pass at that with an Indestructible commander. This is really good because Gisa does need to stay in play in order to trigger on the upkeep, so we get to wipe the board now with something like a Damnation if we want to. Valdreig casting Kalamax during his main phase. And the now 4-2 Stormkiln Artist swinging in towards the Grixis player, trying to offer up the trade for Kess. Oh good, now a 1000-Year Storm from the Kess player. Make it back round to our turn. 4 mana still being held up by the Kess player. A City of Traitors is now in play for Krrik. And it is another land for us, so is there a card we want to steal here? Yeah, I think it's just a play around the table. I don't think Fraying Omnipotence is good enough yet, so I think we're just continuing to hold back, and we can go for Infernal Grasp onto something that we want to steal. Obviously can't go on commanders. Kalamax heading in towards us. Indestructible, are they offering up a trade and they forget it's indestructible? Yeah, I'm just going to assume that this is a combat trick and I'm just not going to take it. I mean, in Teamer colours, I wouldn't have thought they'd be able to do anything here. Maybe they can exile the Darksteel Plate. Okay, there's a Crop Rotation in response to blocks, and they'll get a treasure token from the artist. Maybe it's Kessig Wolf Run or something like that they're going for. Getting a copy of the Crop Rotation as well. So that is a plus counter on the Kalamax. I'm thinking that they just forgot that our commander has Indestructible and they were trying to get rid of it to a block. I don't think they can potentially destroy the Darksteel Plate. Maybe they could bounce it or something. So they get a Tropical Island with the first Crop Rotation, and a Tiger with the next one. 5 commander damage to us, a couple of upkeeps from the Kess player. That is inconsequential as it stands now. 4 cards in hand to start their turn. Plenty of mana, a 1000-Year Storm in play. And the first thing they do is go for High Tide. So I'm wondering if we should just go for the Kess now, go after the Kess. Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea before they get the chance to tutor. We're not going to get the Kess back into play under our control, unfortunately, but it does stop them comboing off here potentially. So Kess successfully going down. And then it's a growth spiral from the Kalamax. So going to get a couple of copies of that, and the Stormkiln Artist will continue to make treasure tokens. Wouldn't mind getting that Stormkiln Artist myself, but felt as though I had to deal with Kess there. And now Chaos Warp coming from the Teamer player, and that is going on to the 1000 Year Storm. So making another treasure token, hopefully not getting into anything decent, but there's few worse things you can get into from the 1000 Year Storm. Yeah, I'm not sure if that took them into a land or not, but either way they don't get anything too interesting. Still got 3 cards and a bunch of mana available to them here though. Deliberate, scry 2, then draw a card. Went for Thrill of Possibility there and discarded Eternal Dominion. Epic cards are always very risky to cast, so it would have been cool to see that. Anyway, Liliana of the Dark Realms, and they did go for a swamp with that. And it is Vilis, Broker of Blood for the black player, so yeah, that's the type of thing I'd rather have pointed my removal at, because we could have had that during our next upkeep. Anyway, the Shadowborn's going in towards Liliana this time. Don't think I'm going to bother turning my Gisa sideways. I'll encourage Valdrieg to do that. And wouldn't you know, it's a land once again for us, so yeah, not having the best of luck here. Not many creatures that we're going to grab from a Kess player. We'll continue to play it out, have to pass here. At the end of our turn, a Curious Herd being cast. Choose a target opponent, get X 3/3 beasts, where X is the number of artifacts that player controls. So they're targeting the Grixis player with that. Getting 5 beast tokens twice there, thanks to copying it with the Kalamax. Gruul Signet during his main phase. And then it looks as though damage is being spread around by the beasts. The Liliana is going to go down here. So Vilis deciding to block one. We will block the Kalamax and hope that they don't have removal for the Darksteel Plate. In response to that, Val is casting a Frantic Search, which is draw 2, discard 2, untap 3 lands. They get a treasure with that, and it will of course be doubled up, so they get to loot even more and untap more lands. And then straight after that, going for Jace's Ingenuity, which is draw 3 at instant speed. Will not get a copy of that, we'll still get a treasure token though. And then due to all the damage being dealt to Brandon, Vilis will draw him a bunch of cards. So Brandon going up to 12 in hand and only 27 life, so not too big a hit. Sure he didn't actually mind that combat step. Lightning Greaves during the second main, and that of course goes straight onto the Kalamax. And then we're round to the Grixis player's turn. They just decide to tap out straight into a Finale of Revelation. That is X10, which is the threshold that they need to meet to get the other ability on that, so they shuffle their graveyard into the library. Still draw the 10 cards, untap up to 5 lands, and they get no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Alright, and that takes them into a Damnation thanks to being able to untap those lands. We'll see if Kalamax has anything to say about that. No counter magic, but responding with a Prophetic Bolt, which is 4 damage, and look at the top 4 cards, put 1 into your hand. So they get 2 of those, thanks to it being the first instant. And both of those going on to the Grixis player directly. So knocking him down to 11. But the board does successfully get wiped. That is really good for us. We've obviously kept our Gisa because it's indestructible. And we're going to end up with Vilis and that Dwarf Token Maker, which is really good. Vilis is going to get us back into this game, I think. Signing Blood from Brandon hasn't done the best on mana. And just drops a Shadowborn Apostle, and that is the end of his turn. So Gisa triggers during the upkeep, and we get a couple of Shadowborn Apostles, the Stormkiln Artist and the Vilis. Draw into a land for the turn, so we'll drop that. And then the first thing we'll do is go for Deadly Dispute, sacrifice one of these Shadowborn Apostles straight away. We'll get a treasure token from the Dwarf, as well as the instant itself. Draw into Swiftfoot Boots and Liliana with that. So I think we should play the Liliana straight away here and start ticking her up. Get a zombie out immediately with her. So we'll swing in towards the Grixis player and deal 4 commander damage to them, get them 1 step closer to getting knocked out. Could have gone for the Swiftfoot Boots onto the Vilis, of course, and that would have been 12 damage onto them, but I'd like to hold up the mana for Vilis so that we can draw 6 cards it'll be with that. Kalamax Stormsire coming back into play for Valdrieg, and the Lightning Greaves going on to that. And then Wilderness Reclamation with 7 cards in hand, so untapping all the lands they control during each untap step. And then casting Surreal Memoir. Return an instant at random from graveyard's hand and it has Rebound. So they got Growth Spiral from that, which they can cast. And then the Kalamax going in towards the Grixis player as well. And casting the Growth Spiral, Kalamax will see that and double it up. And they get Field of the Dead into play, so that will be landfall and make a zombie token. And the Kalamax has now been buffed thanks to casting the instant, so it is 5 commander damage, leaving the Grixis player at 2. So we'll get round to the Kess player's turn now and see what they can do. 1000 Year Storm back into play again, so obviously they drew back into it. And that is Fierce Guardianship from Kalamax, so that can be cast for free, countering the 1000 Year Elixir, or 1000 Year Storm even. And from Kess, at 2 life, it's Never-Ending Torment. Search a target player's library for X cards, where X is the number of cards in your hand. Exile them. And that player shuffles. Wow, so 9 cards, 9 of the best cards being exiled from the Kalamax player. So with that, exiling the Comet Storm, a Jadsi Oracle of Arcavios, Tauran the Sky Summoner, Swarm Intelligence, Rashmi Eternity's Crafter, Hunting Pack, Archmage Emeritus, Jin Illuminatus, and the Deflecting Swat. One of the other demons from this deck, Razaketh the Foul-Blooded now, and that means that Brandon has to tap out into that. So at the end of the turn, we will go Vilis pointed at this zombie token. We pay a black and 2 life into that, so 2 life lost means we draw 2 cards. Bolas's Citadel, speaking of losing life, Plumb the Forbidden as well, and we'll do it again on the stack, get rid of this zombie token. Draw into Cold Storage and Damnation this time. And then let's lose another treasure token. We can blow up the Shadowborn Apostle here, I think. That gets us into another land. I was hoping for Cabal Coffers at some point during all that. But we lose our Shadowborn Apostle, so that will draw us a card with Liliana, Dreadhorde General, getting to our own Vilis. I don't think Gisa has anything else that has been exiled underneath her. Oh, we do have the Shadowborn Apostle, okay. Oh, of course, that was sacrificed to the Phyrexian Tower to get the demon out, so we do get another Shadowborn Apostle from our opponent. Draw another card, that is a Swamp. I think we're okay to go for the Fraying Omnipotence here. Try and get some cards out of our opponent's hands. Let's go into combat first, I think. Vilis can go in at Valdrieg. The zombie token can finish off Kess. And I think we'll leave it there. I bet they can get a creature into play at instant speed thanks to Field of the Dead, so yeah, we'll just swing in like that, I think. Vilis has decayed, so it will go down at the end of combat here. So knocking out the Kess player, and Vilis' decayed trigger goes on the stack, so it will get sacrificed. Do we need to Plumb the Forbidden? I think we need to save our mana more than anything, so we'll let that go down. And that dies and draws us another card with Liliana, Arcane Signet. So we'll go through to the second main, and let's go for this Fraying Omnipotence, I think. Get rid of our opponent's creatures. Get a treasure token with the Stormkiln Artist. So we have to discard 6 cards here. We've got the Rise of the Dark Realms, so let's get rid of Animate Dead. Get rid of some mana. Get rid of Bolas's Citadel because it'll take up too much life, I think. And we'll risk getting rid of the Swiftfoot Boots as well. Val gets rid of a land, a Charmbreaker Devils, and a Thieving Skydiver. That's really good, so not getting rid of our Darksteel Plate with that. As for Brandon, he had Vilis in the graveyard already. Urza's Saga being discarded, Buried Ruin, and Demonic Tutor. So now we have to get rid of some creatures. Get rid of the zombie and the Apostle, which will draw us some cards with Liliana, of course. And then our opponents have to get rid of their big creatures. The demon goes into exile with Gisa. The commander goes into the command zone. Alright, we've got a Defile, a Demonic Tutor of our own. Let's plus on Liliana, get closer to this limit break. And then we could go for the Yawgmoth next turn, and then proliferate on Liliana to get the limit break, and that should be the game. So why don't we... what's the likelihood of a wheel? I mean, we lose a bunch of our really good stuff anyway. Yeah, I'll hold off on the tutor for now, because I'm not entirely sure what I want to get. Let's go Cold Storage. Cold Storage is potentially good in this deck. It's 3 to exile a creature you control, and then sacrifice Cold Storage to return each exiled creature with it to the battlefield under your control. So that does include your opponent's creatures, because you controlled them. Surreal Memoir will come back in with Rebound, and they got themselves the Fierce Guardianship with that, so we have to be wary of that if they get their commander back into play. Another land coming into play with Field of the Dead. They've got 3 cards in hand, one of which is the Fierce Guardianship, of course. And then Malek, is it Paragon? They can play instants and sorceries off the top. Luckily it is a Thought Vessel on top of their library. So Lightning Greaves going onto that, is that a problem? I think it might be, so I'm going to go for the Defile onto that thing. See if they want to get rid of the Fierce Guardianship to protect the Melek. We get a Stormkiln Artist trigger as well, so we can still hold up Plumb the Forbidden. Although we'll have to go easy on that with 6 life. The Melek goes down, so they want to keep hold of the counter magic. So protecting the zombie token instead. And then at the end of their turn, Wilderness Reclamation going to untap all of their lands. They've got 1 mystery card in hand. Mana Crypt from Krrik. And then Brandon passes with 3 cards in hand, so hopefully he can't disrupt us too much. We're going to get our Demonic Tutor countered if we're not careful. But luckily we can tutor with the Razaketh instead. We now know that Ancient Tomb is on top of our library, thanks to the Melek. We know that Extra Planar Lens is on top as well. Not too bothered about that. So let's pay 2 life and sacrifice a zombie token. That will draw us a card with the Liliana, Dreadhorde General, so we could bait out more stuff if we have a surplus of mana. Also, the Extra Planar Lens could be bait itself for the counter magic. So we get the Extra Planar Lens into our hand, and we get to search up the Yawgmoth, which is right there, so we'll just go for that straight away. Okay, a Force of Despair. Destroy all creatures that entered this turn. Let's go for the Yawgmoth straight away. Actually should have gone for the Extra Planar Lens first, I think, but I don't think it particularly matters. So we'll just sacrifice these treasure tokens to the Yawgmoth, discard the Damnation. That allows us to proliferate. So we'll go on Liliana being proliferated. That puts her at 9, so we can go -9 and see if anyone can counter an activated ability. So there we go, our opponents go down to hardly any permanents, 1 of each permanent type. Still 3 mana from the 3 colour player, but still. We can go now. We'll drop the Ancient Tomb. Now, does the Kalamax player have a Lightning Bolt is the question. You know what, it'd be funny to go out to a Lightning Bolt, so let's just tap the Ancient Tomb for 2. Should have gone for the Extra Planar Lens first of all, but I'm hoping that it doesn't matter. So that is allowed down. We'll get rid of a swamp. And then we can tap each of our swamps for 2 mana, so we'll go Demonic Tutor, see if Val decides to let this through. He does, so go for the Grey Merchant of Asphodel so that we're not too likely to die to direct burn. And now we've got the Commander's Plate on top, but I don't think it really matters. Actually overtapped for the Grey Merchant. But we go up to 20, so gaining 18 life there. And then why don't we use the Cold Storage on the Grey Merchant, and then we can sacrifice Cold Storage, get a little bit of an idea as to what we do with Cold Storage. So that comes back into play and we drain out our opponents for the rest. So there we are, looked a little bit sketchy at the beginning there, but managed to get a decent game in with Gisa Glorious Resurrector. If you want to have a look through the deck list, it is in the description as always. Massive thank you to my patrons Valdrieg and Brandon Drennan for their constant support and for playing the game with me as well. Hopefully you all enjoyed it, be sure to leave it a thumbs up and consider donating on Patreon yourself if you did. I'm Tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.